Hi, everyone. This is Lydia Hatton. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist and mindset coach. This is my short video on brain basics for someone who is interested or is coming in for a clinical hypnotherapy session. This short video is just some of the material, the tips, deeper insights into how your brain works and why you think the way that you do that I really like to share with people so that they can be better prepared for a clinical hypnotherapy session. So here we go. In my world, we work with this map. Thoughts create feelings, feelings create actions and behaviors, and that your thinking is responsible for so much of how you feel. So it all starts with how you think, but also why you think the way that you do. So you'll understand that over time we can be programmed and patterned through early childhood experiences that drive the way that we see the world. And some of those programs are not so great. Some of them are fantastic. But it's the ones that aren't so great that we are going to find in a clinical hypnotherapy session so they can be released and then healed, and that you then will be able to move forward in the direction that you desire. So the first thing I like to share with people is that we are only 5% conscious. 95% of our minds are subconscious activity. The primary function of our conscious mind, the prefrontal cortex here, is the creative thinking mind. What am I going to make for dinner? What kind of painting? What kind of business do I want to start? This is the creative brain. The habitual brain is, I know how to walk. I know how to play the piano. I know how to drive a car so I can think about what I'm making for dinner. The habitual brain is massive, but there's a reason why we carry all of these neural networks that form the habits. So is because your brain is an efficiency machine. So you will have habits of thinking to help the brain work in a very efficient manner to keep you learning, to keep you alive, to keep you growing. Okay, so lots of times when we're younger, that behavioral pattern or that limiting belief will form a chemical neural charge in your mind, be it I'm not good enough, whatever might be coming up. And we're able to go in and find it and then release it so it is no longer a habit of thought. Your subconscious mind is so much more powerful than you probably realize. Its processing power for data is 1 million times as powerful as your conscious prefrontal cortex. There is a lot going on in the subconscious mind, from keeping us alive at night while we're sleeping, to going ahead and setting us up in different things we love to do at a holiday because you've got this memory as a child, etc., etc. Super powerful. Let's learn how to leverage it as best as we can. So brain basics I like to share with everyone prior to a session are things such as you think 50 to 70,000 discrete thoughts a day, many of which are repetitive, a lot of which are negative based on our predisposition throughout eons of evolution to want to protect ourselves. You need to stay alive. The brain's job is fundamentally to keep you alive. So just know that when you're trying to manage your mindset, that I've got 50 to 70,000 thoughts in here, and I might not have the best attitude based on my conditioning, my predisposition as a human. So you can work with that now that you're aware of it and say, no, I'm not going to think about it that way. I'm going to change my thinking. And your body will respond. Your mind will respond when you're able to get this directed and controlled. You have 90 billion neuron connections in your brain, approximately. I like to call them neural connection opportunities because your brain is eminently plastic. You're continuing to grow, learn new things. If you want to learn how to play the piano, you'll form a new neural network in your mind. You want to learn how to paint, same thing. So these neural networks continue to evolve. We are always learning and transforming. You actually have 3 brains in your body. You have this one, the supercomputer between your ears, but you also have 40,000 white brain cells in your heart. It's called the heart plexus, And you also have a huge intelligence system based in your gut, which is called the enteric nervous system. These different brains are running information up to this one at about 267 miles an hour. You have a lot of information going from your body up here at all times. This whole mind up here is processing 11 million bits of information every second. 11 million bits of information every second. This conscious mind, though, up here, the prefrontal cortex, is factoring approximately 40 to 50 every second. So, how does it choose the 40 to 50 bits? It does. And that's a key. That's very important because it points to the fact that we're thinking from the past. We're thinking on predisposition from past thinking and past behaviors. That's informing our what we consider to be our present moment thinking. It's all based on where you're coming from. So the example I use with someone is like if you wanted to go buy a red car and you get to the dealership and they don't have any more red cars, but they have a blue car. And they're like, okay, well, we'll get you in this blue car. They give you a deal. And you finally agree and you drive off the lot going, I never wanted to drive a blue car. I never saw myself in a blue car, but it was worth it. So here I go. And within a few minutes, you're driving along and you're like, I had no idea so many people drove blue cars. My gosh, there are blue cars everywhere I look. What changed? What happened? You have a new point of reference. And all of a sudden you're starting to see blue cars, whereas before you didn't see them at all because you weren't looking for them. So in a hypnotherapy session, what we're able to do is locate what would be the equivalent of the red car, which you no longer want once it's discovered, most likely, and get you focusing on that blue car, what you is that you do want. And it's enormously powerful, but it has a lot to do with understanding what your thinking predisposition is, how your brain is decided on that 40 to 50 bits, why you have that habit of thought that keeps cranking that might be holding you back. Your subconscious mind is also a 24/7 record of everything you've experienced in life. And again, as I mentioned before, it's an efficiency machine, but it can even bring forward memories from your last 3 months in utero. As an efficiency machine, it will track the things that have highly, neurologically, chemically charged material, such as I kept getting left at the playground at the age of 6. But are you going to remember exactly who is there, what the building colors are around you? We wouldn't focus on that, but you will be able to pull up a very old memory from your childhood that is carrying the emotion tied to the issue you wish to address. Also, I just want to make note that for people that live highly stressful lives and or are dealing with trauma and or certain situations that are very difficult to manage, stress will begin to limit what you're able to access in your prefrontal cortex. In some ways, stress will shut this down. And again, it's so that you can use these habitual, instinctual parts of your brain and your body and your senses to keep you safe. But after a while, with the cortisol running, if you're living in that chronic situation, it becomes very challenging for your brain. And I have seen pictures of brains of people who have lived in long form abusive relationships where the shape of their prefrontal cortex actually begins to shrink. So just know that your brain is eminently plastic and that you really want to work to keep this fresh and focused and want to keep your stress down as much as you can so you can think clearly and create. The last bit of information I like to share with people has to do with this concept of being programmed as a child. Now, again, you can say, okay, our brain is like a supercomputer and we have operating software. Well, how do you really get programmed as a child? And what does that mean, as your life as an adult? And when I'm working with someone, we're going after the material that got stuck in the brain, at a very young age that formed a limiting belief or is a fear about themselves. And that will come when typically between the ages of 0 and 7, you're very open and you're very vulnerable. And I'm going to explain some brain waves in terms of how they impact the way that your brain works in a minute. But between the ages of 0 and 7, you're basically in a semi-hypnotic state. You're taking in so much information because you have to learn to survive on the planet. So in that semi-hypnotic state, we are taking in so much information, we believe what is around us to be real and a real fact in our life. So if we're continued to be left behind at the playground at the age of 6, you're going to develop an emotional charge along with the thought, perhaps, that I don't matter. I'm not good enough. And that belief is so old and so embedded, it will bleed through into the beliefs you have about yourself as an adult. It will inform those 40 to 50 bits you're using to factor the world around you while your subconscious mind is cranking on 11 million bits. So that limiting belief most often form between the 0 and 7. And when I'm working with women, I will say we can have these programs and these limiting beliefs come up between the ages of 0 and 14, because as women go through puberty, they are so vulnerable that a lot of trauma and shock can get locked in the mind as well. But between the ages of 0 and 7, we come onto the planet newly born, and our brain is moving in a very slow brainwave called delta. Very slow. Your brain is usually operating in bandwidths between 0 and 30 hertz. So delta is very slow frequency. And then a little later, typically around the age of 2, you'll get into theta, which is a little higher. And then moving forward, somewhere, around the ages of, 5, 6, 7, alpha begins to kick in. And then around 7, you'll start to see beta waves start to develop. That's when the logical brain really begins to turn on, and children become a lot more self-aware, a lot more logical. And right now, you're listening with your beta brain, and I'm speaking with my beta brain, the logical thinking mind up here. But even when we're going to sleep, we go into alpha and we'll go into theta and deep into delta when our body is fully asleep and the brain is working to clear its chemicals. A lot of the organs are clearing. But between those ages of 0 and 7, those slower brainwave states allow information to embed very deeply. And it really can create certain patterns of behavior. So, for example, if you're out to dinner with your friends and somebody points to your husband and says, Tom acts exactly like his father, right? And you say, I know. And Tom's like, what? I do not. And everybody at the table is going, oh, yes, you do. That is an embedded pattern that we absorbed from observing our parents as children. Another side to that, though, is I'll work with people sometimes that might not feel comfortable using their voice. And we'll go back to, well, why? Where did that begin? And throughout a conversation, it will come up that, well, their mother never did. And again, you're not consciously aware of this as an adult, but you have been patterned. There are patterns of behavior that we absorb. So between those early years of 0 to 7, and again, 0 to 14 with women, before this logical brain and our, kind of independent thinking really kicks in, we'll absorb a lot of material that limits our thinking as adults. And the bottom line is that I say to all my clients is, it's not your fault. It is not your fault. You were a dependent child, dependent upon the adults and the people around you. So the great news is we can go in, we can find it, we can unwind it and heal it, and then put you in future pacing and allowing those alpha and theta states that you're in a trance state to start building the new neural network, taking you to the place that you want to go. Thank you for listening to this primer on what I call brain facts. I look forward to seeing you in session, or if this has piqued your curiosity, give me a shout. You can use the QR code here, or you can also find a button on my website, lydiahatton.com. I look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks for your time. Take care.